Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Sage Experience podcast, where it's more than medicine, it's connection. I am your host, Acacia Williams, and we are so excited to be relaunching our podcast here at Sage Memorial Hospital, where we'll be interviewing our relatives, staff, and community members and healthcare leadership. We are so excited for you guys to be tuning in today, and we are going to be interviewing our first guest, our CEO, Melinda White, where it's more than medicine, it's connection. Okay, so first question I have for you is tell us a little bit about your educational background and your upbringing growing up.
Thank you for asking that question. I'm from Steamboat, Arizona, which is about 20 miles west of where Sage Memorial Hospital is. And I was actually born at Sage Memorial Hospital at the Legacy Hospital or the old hospital. And my mother at the time had just returned from Chicago. So I have two older siblings, and both were born in Chicago, and I was the only one that was born on the Navajo Nation. But I eventually ended up in Albuquerque for quite some time, and in my teen years, I returned back to Navajo. And my sisters and I primarily lived in the border towns, like in Farmington. We went up to Salt Lake City. And however, I did go to school at Fort Wingate, and I graduated uh, in 1988. And at the time, I didn't really have my goals set, so I was not sure of what I was going to do. But I, I did have this thought of self determination and self sufficiency, where my sisters and I always took care of ourselves. So that was just innate as we grew up. And when I moved back to Navajo, the first employment that I came across was with Sage Memorial Hospital, and I came in as a volunteer. I worked in medical records for quite some time, and then I had saw that there Northern Arizona University had a nursing school, and I had already taken a lot of my undergrad course with Diné College. So I applied for the nursing school, and I was selected among 200, 300 applicants that were trying to get into nursing school at the time. But it was a cohort, so there were 10 of us that were selected for the NAU nursing school, the American Indian program, and it was right here on the compound of Sage Memorial Hospital. And at the time, I was also working at Sage, and I was not a permanent full time, but they hired me on as a coder. So I worked as a coder while I was going to school and up to a certain point, because when you're in nursing school, it's very difficult and very challenging, and you have to dedicate all your time to your studying. So I worked as much as I could. In year two into the nursing school, I had to move away from working, but I had scholarships that were able to cover my expenses, and also just living like a single parent where you're having to apply for food stamps, WIC, and whatever you can do to make sure that your family is financially supported and that there's food on the table and a roof over our head. So that was a 3-year program. And before I graduated, Sage Memorial Hospital had accepted me and started recruiting me into a nursing position for an infection control officer. So I accepted that job and eventually grew into a director of quality management once I graduated and passed uh, my nursing NCLEX. So that was my first degree, the bachelor's of science in nursing. And I went back to school about a year later, and I earned my master's of science in health administration. and which was very helpful because once I became a nurse and earning the BSN, the CEO for Sage had started mentoring me in administration and just telling me about the operations and the management side of it. And I stayed here for about 3 years and went and then applied at Fort Defiance, where I worked for an additional 4 years. And during the 4 years, the CEO, who was Dr. Freeland, had mentored me as a CE for a CEO position. So that was a 3-year period. And at that time, I earned my master's health administration degree. And then I continued on and I worked at Winslow Indian Healthcare Center for an additional 4 years. And Sally Pete, who was the CEO at Winslow, had again taken me under her wing and mentored me for the time that I was there. And after I left there, I started working on my master's jurisprudence in Indian law because I wanted to understand the Public Law 93-638 and what it really meant to have that sovereign, the self-determination, the self-governance side, and how we could exercise that as a healthcare organization. But I left Winslow and started at San Carlos Apache Healthcare Corporation, where I spent 7 years and really learned a lot about self-determination. And I graduated at that time with my master's jurisprudence in Indian law. And since I was so close to finishing my master's of science in nursing, that's where I earned 2 degrees, was in San Carlos. So I do have a bachelor's of science in nursing, a master's of science in nursing, a master's health administration degree, and a master's jurisprudence in Indian law. But that is my career, and almost every place that I worked at, I have been very fortunate and blessed that the CEOs had selected me and mentored me in becoming one day a CEO, whether it's at their organization or somewhere else.
Nice. Thank you for guiding us through your educational background. For those who may be new to Sage Memorial Hospital, how would you describe who we are and who we serve?
Sage Memorial Hospital has a long history, a long legacy of providing quality health care. We've been in operation for 96 years and starting with a small building and moving into a bigger building, a 4-room building, and eventually the console hall, and then to the Legacy Hospital. So when I returned to Sage, I was familiar with the history and also the staff that would work at Sage Memorial Hospital. They had this a great relationship with each other and really building the community to the optimal health. And so Sage has, again, this long legacy. And I came in with a strong background of quality because my nursing career was all but quality, quality management, compliance, risk management, employee health. And so I was very familiar with the type of hospital, the type of healthcare that Sage Memorial Hospital is and was to be. So our thoughts are not about the patients. Everyone that comes through the doors are our relatives. So our thoughts, our way of thinking is when our relative comes to the door, then we treat them with that respect. And that's where the core values come in. Abe, saditle, bodozen, husho, ishile. And those are core values that are very important and make us unique as far as an organization. And not only that, but Sage has always been a independent facility. We were once licensed under the state of Arizona, and we're a 501(c)(3), and we weren't ever under the federal side. It's always been the standalone hospital that was created by the Presbyterians and eventually became managed by a um, 5 board governing body. But our focus has been since I've been the CEO is that we place patient safety and quality in the forefront. And we want to make sure that as our relatives come through the door, that we treat them as that and we regard them as our relatives.
Nice. So, what would you say makes Sage Memorial Hospital unique within the Navajo Nation and the region?
I think I talked a little bit about the history of SAGE, and that's what really makes us unique, is that SAGE has been in operation for 96 years, and they have this legacy of bringing forth quality providers and taking care of our relatives that live in the surrounding areas. And that's a legacy, a challenging legacy that the current executive team and the providers must continue to carry on. So that's what really makes us different. And we also have the advantage of networking with other non-tribal facilities. So we're able to share our best practices and just as well that they share their best practices with us. And we're implementing the most current practices, the evidence-based practice, the best practices, and making sure that, again, we provide quality and that our thought is always focused on our relative, our patients, and that we carry out a patient-centered care model.
Nice. How does Sage integrate the net values such as Rajon into patient care and leadership?
As an executive member and as a chief executive officer, there definitely has to be an understanding of what our cultures, what our traditions are, and having that mindset. And when you're thinking of Ninsahake not Ahinasiasin, which is thinking, planning, then doing, then hope. And when you have that Western medicine side of it, they have what's called a Plan, Do, Study, Act, which is right in line with our way of thinking. So implementing that Plan, Do, Study, Act, which is a performance improvement model, then you're able to carry out the traditional side. And it almost seems that our traditions are far more advanced than Western medicine, and that Western medicine is more tangible and that you need the evidence. Whereas our traditional side, we do things and we're not asking really the why behind it. It's just our way of life. But it made sense to me that on this path of Hajon, that we have to keep our relatives in balance, or we're helping them get back into balance. And sometimes these illnesses that may come forth, we're teaching them how they can control it and how they can walk that path of Bahajon.
Nice. So I do know we have a lot of new programs and services getting added to Sage Memorial Hospital from labor and delivery, and we recently just got surgery after 20 plus years. So, what would you say? What program or service are you most excited about coming to Sage Memorial Hospital?
It's the elder care services. When I had initially became a nurse, my focus was geriatric care, that I had wanted to take care of the elders. And right now, there's just not enough services, particularly a skilled nursing home or a daycare or respite care for for us to take care of our elders. So I'm really looking forward to the doors opening with what was formerly the Ganado nursing home that's across the hospital, and I'm looking forward to the services starting later in this year, and that we will start serving our elders accordingly and giving them that respect and keeping them closer to home. So, but that's the top service that I'm really, really looking forward to.
Nice. Um, let's see. How is Sage preparing the new generation of healthcare needs?
Well, we started planning about 2 years ago of how are we going to ensure that there's stability with our staffing side, in particular, our nursing side and our provider side. So we started reaching out to schools, to Arizona State University, Northern Arizona University, UNM, the University of New Mexico, and of course the online courses, which is GCU and University of Phoenix. Um, we were able to get to GCU and University of Phoenix initially, and they're still here. And with GCU, they offer a small discount to our employees so they can continue and receive a bachelor's, master's, or doctorate degree. So that is offered. As far as the clinical side, in particular the nursing, we are working with ASU with Live Where You Learn, which involves a cohort of nursing students, and that ASU will be providing classes, clinicals here on site of Ganado compound. So that's how we're preparing our nursing side. And our provider side, we started networking with other schools just as well, with U of A, with Creighton University, and just really looking at a preceptorship or an externship program, an internship program where we could bring in our providers. And we currently have a program in our dental department, and we do have students that come in, they graduate, and we've been able to recruit at least 2 or 3 from the school.
Nice. That is so awesome. What would you say motivates you in your role as Chief Executive Officer?
I personally, I think it's just comforting to see, that our community has access to care and that we're working on becoming the center of excellence and the center of care where we provide the specialty services, whether it's inpatient, outpatient, or specialty services as labor and delivery and surgical services, the dialysis, our elder care, that we're giving our relatives a place where they can have that healing environment, that they have a place to come to for their healthcare needs. And that's critical for an area that we're in because our relatives sometimes they have to travel 40 miles, 50 miles just to get to their health care to see the provider. So it's very important that we're here where we're at and that we continue to provide the services.
Nice. And last question for the day. What message would you like to share to our youth who want to maybe work in the healthcare someday?
That's an important question. Uh, the one thing that I can emphasize, and we did have some students from Ganado High School come and visit Sage Memorial Hospital, and there was a high interest in nursing and medicine. And the classes that are very important for that field are it's your math classes. And I always say art because you just use a different part of your brain when you're doing art, and you have to really think creatively. And the important um, question that any student can ask is why. And that really builds a person's critical thinking. You ask the why. Why am I taking this Tylenol? Why am I going over here? And that will help with your critical thinking, and you really will move on that path. And going into any type of healthcare field, that you have to have that critical thinking skill.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And we will see you next time on the Sage Experience podcast. Ahiyahe tohogone.